Hi students, how's everyone? Welcome to the second session of Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. I'm Ankana, your master teacher for social sciences at Vedantu, hoping all of you are doing amazing and taking good care of yourself. Okay guys, so let's get started. So if you remember in the previous session we discussed how socialism had started now, coming into the society, how it had now started influencing the society, how the people were coming up with the idea of socialism, and not just socialism, also communism, and how it was now it had just begun to influence the society. Now we are going to talk about today how it started spreading. So people had only come up with the idea of socialism till now. Okay, the talks had just started. It had not started showing effects. So through this session, we will discuss that. And then of course, we're going to discuss the beginning of the Russian Revolution. Okay. Now, before that, I actually want to talk to you about quickly, remind you for that matter, that these are few problems that you were facing, right? So don't forget guys that we have the solution to all of these problems, to your doubts, notes, tests and assignments, competitive exams, choice of schedule or choice of language. All these problems have now been solved. And not just that, along with all of these bonuses, all you need to do is go and click on this link, vdnt.in/ytpro. Remember, this will help you get the subscription for Vedantu Pro, and you are going to be a part of the Vedantu family. You have multiple options. Follow the steps, choose your grades, board, whatever package you want, 1, 3 or 6 months, and all you need to do is apply this code. The moment you apply this code, you are going to get awesome discount, right? So the code is AKEPRO. Don't forget guys, you're gonna get a lot of advantages once you become a part of the family and once you take the subscription. Just in case even if you don't, we are anyways here for you, right? Okay. So let's quickly discuss the homework answer from, the answer from the previous session's homework question. It was B, factories, and people who have answered the fastest are Anandi Mehta, Yukti V and Dharmendra Bharadwaj. Congrats you guys, I'm so proud of you. Rest of you people, remember your names can also come here on the leaderboard. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel if you've not done that already. Make sure that you're putting the comment in the comment box, not just in the live chat, and liking the video. I would love to see the name of all dear children over here one by one. Okay guys, coming to the index. So these are the things, as I told you, we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about how support for socialism started. What marked the beginning of the Russian Revolution? Economy and society, socialism in Russia, and a turbulent time, the 1905 revolution. At the end of the session, we'll also have one mark, very important question. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Now, coming back to the point when we started. Support for socialism. So as I told you guys, the idea of socialism was just born, right? Till the part we had discussed in the last session. Now it was just being ignited more and more, and it has just started to spread in 1870s. Okay, people were now getting to know more about socialism, and they were associating and resonating with the idea. As a result of which, there were also some international bodies being formed, particular bodies being formed to work for the spread of socialism, to establish socialism in the society. So one such international body was Second International. It was known as Second International, right? Now there was a shift happening. Okay, now as it kept on spreading, earlier it was more like the scholars or the elites, people who were educated were getting to know about this and being influenced by this. Now from that, if you remember Karl Marx and all these people, right, Louis Black, all of those who we discussed in the previous session belong to the better educated part of the society. Now the awareness started spreading, and it also spread among the workers. Now when the workers had started of England and Germany getting influenced by the idea of socialism, and they had started to associate with this idea. Now what happened as a result of this? They also started looking up for something through this idea of socialism now. Now their definition of socialism was slightly different. Actually, I wouldn't say their definition was different. Their desire from the socialism, what they were aspiring to achieve from this, was slightly different than compared to the interest of the other people. They were only wanting, better living conditions, better wages, and of course less number of working hours because their life was being miserable. We'll get to know about this in more detail. Okay, so this is what the workers saw for themselves, and they started also getting involved. Okay, now they were forming, now, and also it's not like they were just being a part of it randomly. They had started organizing themselves. You see, that was the influence of socialism, right? They had now started organizing themselves, and they were doing this in proper organizations, and that was the strength and influence of socialism on people and the society. So interesting, right? And then along with this, a lot of political parties in different parts of society also started to be formed. For example, in Germany, Social Democratic Party was formed. In 1905, Labour Party in Britain was formed. Labour Party is still a well-renowned party in Britain, very important. And of course, the Socialist Party in France. Okay, guys. Now, what was happening? So, all of this fight for socialism is going on. All of this fight to establish socialism, to profess and propagate all of these ideas is happening. It is continuously going on, but still till 1914, till the First World War, there was still no government which had completely taken up socialism. People were constantly, professing this, preaching this, talking about this, creating awareness. Everyone was being influenced by it, but somehow no government till now was completely socialist. Till now, the only government that was still in power was that of the conservatives. However, it had started affecting, it had started shaping up the legislation. It had started creating the difference. The wheel had started to churn, but still there was no concrete change as such till here. Right? Now we will talk about the Russian Revolution. Now you might be thinking, guys, that why are we talking about socialism in Europe and then specifically Russian Revolution? Because the Russian Revolution was actually ignited by the idea of socialism. So now that we are discussing, or you can say birth or establishment of socialism in this particular region, how this led to the Russian Revolution is also very important, because socialism was actually slowly making the changes happen in Europe, and this change sinked in, poured into the Russia, into the state of, into the land of Russia as well, and started the revolution. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this force, this factor which led to the Russian Revolution and what happened in the Russian Revolution. Now, if you remember how we started with French Revolution, we spoke about the idea, what led to the French Revolution first. The idea, the background, right? The setup in which this started. So similarly, let's understand what was the backdrop, what was the background, what was the setup of the society when Russian Revolution started in Russia. So, Bacha, at this time when Russian Revolution started, the state, as you know, Russia, how it is in the present form as a country was not there. There was no definite country as such. Okay, it was just an empire which was ruled by an autocrat. Okay, autocrat, as you know, is an absolute ruler, monarch. Okay, so at that time it was huge. The space, the land mass was huge, and it was controlled by this autocratic ruler, this absolute ruler called Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar, bacha, means king in Russian. Okay, so King Nicholas II was ruling this entire place. Now, however, as I'm saying that Russia was not completely divided, it was not segregated, somewhere as a result of this or for multiple factors, the whole population of Russia was a mixture of diverse cultures. Okay, there were major religions of different kinds. It was not just one or two, multiple. But the major religion was that of the Russian Orthodox Christianity. But along with that also existed the Catholics, the Protestants, the Muslims, and the Buddhists. Buddhists were also there. So this was basically the setup, the social setup of this place of Russia. Now we're going to talk about economy and society of Russia at this point. So guys, the economy and the society, if you look at what it was made up of, the composition, you'll find it to be very unique and interesting. And I'll tell you why. So this entire Europe right now is moving towards industrialization. If you remember, new middle class was emerging after French Revolution, industries were emerging, industrialization is happening, people are mobilizing from villages towards cities, migration is happening. But still, despite of all of these changes in the entire continent, Russia was still majorly dependent on agriculture. Okay, 85% of its population was based out of agriculture, was based on agriculture, and was earning their livelihood from cultivation, harvest, and things by doing job related to agriculture completely. Now, what kind of production did they used to do? So they were used to do both kind of productions. It was not just for their own, consumption, but the agriculture, the peasants were also producing for the market, for the export. In fact, Russia turned out to be a major exporter of grains eventually. Okay. So this is the difference between the rest of the Europe, as I told you, and the Russia, and how we see that what was the kind of trade they were doing with other people. Okay guys, now if we talk about industries, now since industrialization is happening around, some part of it will be affected. So it did get affected. Industrial setups were being established. Setups for industrialization was being done, but it was done in small pockets, in small chunks. Okay, here and there, a little bit here, a little bit there, not very properly flourished. And it was majorly in the places like St. Petersburg or Moscow. Okay, till now there are two kinds of workers, guys. There are industrial workers, and there are craftsmen. Craftsmen are the people who kind of work, do hand labor, do manual labor and work by hand. So they were still present despite of industries being set up a little bit here and there in clusters maybe, but the craftsmen were still present, and that's a little weird, right? Agriculture is there, craftsmen were present, and all of this is existing together. The whole nation is based on agriculture. Despite of industrialization, nation is based on craftsmen. That is a little kind of, as I told you, interesting, and adds on the uniqueness. Okay. Now, apart from this, what happened by 1890s, a lot of factories started being set up. Now, what was the reason behind this? Why did all of a sudden in 1890 this change happen? So, railway network was now extended. Railway network has expanded. The network was very strong now. Now, if you remember, you might have read this before, even if you have not, let me tell you. But whenever railway gets introduced to any place, okay, railway is installed, railway services is available, the trade naturally booms. Okay, why? Because the networking becomes very good, very strong. Not just that, it becomes very economical. Doing the transportation by sea was difficult. It used to take a lot of time. Through roads, it used to be very expensive. But by train, orders in bulk, raw materials and the manufactured goods could have been sent from one place to the another in bulk at a very, very economical rate. That led to the increase in the trade, industrialization. That led to the setup of industrialization and its growth, and even the forest investment started increasing. The production of gold doubled, that of iron and steel output was quadrupled. It increased by 4 times, and all of this was happening because of all of a sudden railway was introduced to the people. Okay. Now, if you talk about the setup of industries were mostly private properties. It was not like it was a public association or it was out there by the government. No, only because it was very less number of industries. Naturally, people who owed a lot of money, who had a lot of power, could have only established or put up a factory or an industry. And that was the case. Most of these industries were actually private properties of these big landowners, big industry owners, factory owners. As a result of which, despite of the government's intervention and certain policies designed by them, a lot of exploitations were happening. Government supervised these places, but they were not really supervising the craft and workshops. Over there, they were not keeping a very hard and fast check. In fact, in the other places also, because it was more of a private property. As a result of which, all these rules which was defined by the government, which was given by the government, were being broken by the people. The working hours of the craftsmen in the workshops went up to 15 hours, and that in the factories up to 10 to 12 hours. Can you imagine, out of 24 hours in a day, these were the number of hours these guys were working continuously. And this is what they wanted to change. Now, it's not like everyone had to do everything, which was good in a way. Division of labor was done. Even the father of economics, Adam Smith says that the division of labor is very, very important for more efficiency, for more productivity, and for the peace and good environment for a labor also. So that was there, whoever is skilled in whatever sector gets to work on that. For example, a craftsman, a metal worker, a person who has idea in metal and is good at labor will work as a metal worker. A person who has an idea about cotton textiles will work as a cotton textile worker. So this division was done. Whoever knew whatever to be done, whatever they were suited best for, they started doing that. And who were these laborers? If you talk about, most of them were from villages, and a lot of them were also from cities already. Now these laborers had divisions among them, okay, they had multiple differences among them. What was this? So this division, as I told you, was done on the basis of their knowledge, on the basis of their skill, like the metal workers and the cotton textile workers. Now these metal workers were like the aristocrats among the workers. Why? Because they used to receive more wages, they used to receive more money, and were comparatively in a better condition than the other laborers. Okay guys, now at the same time, women, though it's a patriarchal society, at the same people are even struggling for their voting rights, women, but over here 31% of the factory labor force was that of women. That is not less, correct? And however, their pay was very less. They used to get less money than the men, but at least some opportunity to be a part of the society equal to the men was being created for them. Okay, now this division among the workers was very, very evident. They were divided because, like metal workers would stay only with metal workers. They would form their own organization, small organization, club kind of things. Also, they used to dress up in a certain way. People who were working in the metal factories used to dress up in a certain way. People associated with cotton textiles would dress up in a certain way. So these divisions were not just only on the level of their skills and knowledge. It also started reflecting in their habits. The way they would dress up, in their manners too. Their mannerism also started being influenced by obviously by their peers, because I'm working more with this person, I will get naturally influenced by this person. And in general, those clubs were different. You could spot the division, okay, that this group is that of the laborers, these are of the managers, this is of coal, this is of textile, all of that. Okay, now what they did was, after this, they were working individually. Now they started feeling a little oppressed, and in order to strengthen themselves, they started forming workers association. Major reason why this happened was, because it was unemployment. It was a time of unemployment where most of the people were not employed. And why was this happening? If you remember, we discussed that there was scarcity of food. Why was the scarcity of the food? Because the population of France, and not just France, entire Europe was rapidly increasing. So because of this increment in the population, naturally, even in the Russian Empire, the population must have increased. As a result of which, what happened? Population is increasing, food production or supply is still the same. Number of jobs is still the same, which means with the increased population, it seemed very less to satisfy or make people content for their needs. So unemployment started. Now, in order to fight this, in order to fight the unfair, unjust treatment of the laborers, these guys started forming associations. And despite of all their divisions, their mannerisms were different, their dressing styles were different, their work, their skills, their knowledge, all of these things were different. But whenever it came to strike, whenever it came to going on a strike, all of these laborers used to get united, because they knew anyone would go on a strike only when there was something unfair done to that person. And if any unfair treatment is done to any of the brothers in the labor section, all of the brothers would stand together and go for a strike. And as a result of this, from a period of 1896 to 97, multiple strikes happened in the textile industry and the metal industry in 1902. Okay, now let's talk about peasants. So, Bacha, if you remember, peasants from the rest of the Europe that we have discussed till now, they were in a very, very, oppressed, suppressed kind of society. They were this class of the society which was being dominated by everyone, and they were being dominated because they were very sweet, innocent, helpless kind of people who did not have anything to rely on. Now, that's the normal impression of peasants that we have in our mind, and that's how they were in Europe. But In Russia, they were very, very different. Russian peasants were rowdy, okay, they were very, very strong. They did not used to care about who is there and who is not. In fact, these Russian peasants, most of them did not even have their land, okay. They did not even have a place to cultivate. They used to borrow it, rent it from the landowners who were basically the people of nobility, people of the noble section. They would rent it from there and then divide like workers, okay. They would divide each and every section, and what now happened was that this was there, okay. They respected the nobility, and this is the difference. The peasants in other places we have seen were very, quiet, were very suppressed. They were very fragile kind of people who could have been easily dominated by others, okay. They were very submissive, but here they were very, very assertive. They were like, hey, you have to do this, listen to my demand. As a result of which they neither respected the Tsar, the king, nor did they respect the nobility which owed all of that land. And how do we know this? So they would outrightly, say no to paying rents. They wouldn't pay the rents to the nobles. They even said that they wanted all the land that belonged to the nobles from Tsar to be given to them, because anyways they are working on these lands, right? They are cultivating, so they deserve the land for themselves. And not just that, they would not even, like, they were very, very violent, okay. If you were not listening to them, they will in fact give you 2 slaps. And even ahead of that, if you wouldn't listen to them at all, if you would piss them off, they might even end up, they wouldn't be reluctant from murdering you up. And as a result of this, in 905, a lot of murders became very, very common in Russia, okay. This led to that. Now let's talk about socialism in Russia. Before that, one quick concept that I actually forgot to mention, guys. Now all of these laborers, as I told you, used to rent out the land and work together. Now naturally, few people would have rented out more land, few people would have rented less land, cultivation would be more or quality would be better. Similarly, quality would be inferior or quantity would be less for one or the other farmer. The discrepancy, the difference, not discrepancy, the difference between two kinds of farmers would always be there, peasants, right? But despite of that, what they used to do was they used to produce everything together, and together they would sell it off to the market, and whatever profit they would make, they would divide it equally. And this was known as commune or mir in Russian language, okay. Now if I try to tell you in a simple way, it's basically like, how do I say, there are a bunch of 5 people. One of them is earning 100 rupees, the another one is earning 70 rupees, one of them is earning 50 rupees, and this one wants only 10 rupees. Now what they would do is they would combine all of that money and then divide everything together as a whole. Whatever number 1 is getting will be taken by number 5 also. And that is what they used to do. Such a beautiful thought, right? So wise. I mean, they understood that a person may have been only able to, rent out a small piece of land, or his cultivation may not have been that good. So all of them decided to pitch in and help and support the person who was suffering. Now let's talk about socialism. So all this thing, okay, workers going on a strike despite of their differences, coming in together, the peasants coming in together despite of all their different things that they were doing and sharing their profits. All these things are showing that the people of Russia were kind of born socialists. They were already in a way professing the concept of socialism, okay guys. Now if you talk about political parties, okay, so in 1914, as I told you, there were no government which was completely socialist, right? So naturally there must have been some parties which would have started forming by now. But in this place, what kind of rule was there? Monarchy was there. So Tsar Nicholas II was completely against formation of any party, because he used to take it as a direct threat. Okay, and as a result of which, whatever parties or anyone who started working were doing it in secret, and one such secret party was Russian Social Democratic Workers Party, which was found in 1898. Okay, now what was their job? So they used to set up newspapers, mobilize the workers, and organize strikes together. Now guys, if you talk about peasants, okay, what kind of lifestyle they had, what were their aspirations, okay. So their main force, now the peasants were actually the main force of the revolution, okay. They were the main driving force. They took care of elevating the revolution from level 1 to level 10. They were very, very participative. And what was the reason behind this? As I told you, I mean, the major reason was that all of these lands were being divided, were being owned by the nobility, and that is something they were absolutely against, correct? Now, apart from that, whenever what they had started asking the Tsar to do is, they had asked him to divide the land periodically, made them national, they had started asking the Tsar to make sure to take away the lands from the nobility and give it to them. That's what they wanted, okay? And they were struggling very hard for their peasants' rights to be fulfilled. Now, while all of this is happening, we know that they are kind of naturally socialist. Why? Because no matter what, who is doing what, all of the accumulation income was accumulated and was divided in with equal profits to everyone. That is what socialism is, right? Everything belongs to everyone. Everyone should profit from whatever work is done. It should not be inferior for few people and superior for few people. So that is what peasants were. And as I told you, they were the driving force of this movement. Hence, they also formed in 1900 a party called Socialist Revolutionary Party. Okay guys, now let's talk about something else. So we had just discussed about the Social Democratic Party. Now I want you to quickly know that this party was now going to be divided into two. Till now there was only one powerful party which was taking care of everything. Now it was going to be segregated. It was going to be divided into two parts. And who would have done this? So Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin was one person who was greatly responsible for this. Now what did he used to believe? So, Leninist theory you might have heard. So, Lenin used to very strongly believe that peasants should not be the driving force of this revolution. Why? Because he felt that peasants were not educated and there was so much of disuniformity among the peasants themselves. Few of them were so poor, few of them were so rich, and as a result of this, few of them worked for as laborers, few of them worked for the capitalists. So there was so much of division that it would have caused some friction among themselves only. And as a result of that, he said like, hey, this is not going to work. They can't be part of the social movement that I am involved with. Not just that, he also believed that under a rule of a king like Tsar Nicholas, they need parties, they need groups which would be very disciplined to give him a very strong fight. And he believed like these poor, these peasants did not have that motivation. Their only motivation was money, which at any point if anyone would offer them, they would leave their fight. So he wanted someone to be able to fight against the repressive society and its norms. Okay. So guys, as I told you, after Vladimir Lenin, the whole group, the party was divided into two. One was called Bolsheviks, the another one was called Mensheviks. Now, what was the difference between the two? So, as I told you, Bolsheviks was more of the majority group. Mensheviks were more of minority group. Bolsheviks was led by Lenin. Minority was led by Muratov. Okay, you can look at the other differences. The other differences basically says that they started following the Bolsheviks started following the Marxist theory. However, for them it was very general. Campaign for reforms were happening with Mensheviks, but it was not happening in India. Sorry, not India. It was not happening in this another group. Okay, and then of course the Bolsheviks. Okay, the Bolsheviks were waiting for revolution. Now they were not straight away going and fighting for things. They were waiting for revolution to happen. They were organizing. They were more organized, more strategic in nature. But Mensheviks, because they were peasants driven by emotion, they had already started campaigning for reforms. Okay. And also Bolsheviks was a small group. Okay. They used to believe, despite of having the majority, Lenin used to believe that the group should be small and well knitted. People should be very strongly bonded with each other. It's not like, okay, whoever wants to come and join. But that was the funda of Mensheviks. They were like huge. They were open in large party, and they were like, whoever wants to join, you can come and support the system. Yeah. Okay. So these were basically the two parties. Now let's talk about the turbulent time. The time which was very there was a lot of turmoil in the society. There was a lot of disturbance in the society of 1905, which ultimately led to the revolution. So, but now in 20th century, okay, as I told you, Tsar was there, and he was not a subject to the parliament. Absolute monarchy was there. But now, because people had started getting influenced by the idea of socialism, and then of course French Revolution had driven this whole one wave which had ignited the feeling of nationalism, which had ignited the feeling of liberalism, demand for liberal and free society, despite of away from a monarchical society, was anyways happening in the people, as a result of which there were a lot of groups who stood against the Tsar. Everyone in the society grouped in one or the other, themselves got themselves grouped in one or the other way, one or the other group, and they together stood against the Tsar, and they were like, okay, now you do whatever you want to do. All of us are now united. What will you do? You will have to leave. And who were these people? So they were the social democratic, socialist revolutionaries, peasants, workers and jihadists, and they were in a fight with the Tsar. Now, bacha, who are jihadists? Jihadists are basically Muslim people who work for their reformation. So you can say Muslim reformers working for the betterment of their stature in the society. Now after this, because all of this is happening and there's so many people opposing the king, naturally it would lead to a revolution. It will lead to a resistance being offered by all of the people. Okay, and what were they asking? Of course, if I'm resisting you, if I don't want you to be there to have absolute power, I must be having something in my mind that I would want you to, take care of, that I would want you to fulfill. So their only demand was that they did not even were saying that the king should move away, the monarchy should end absolutely, but they were saying that give us a constitution, give us a parliament. And this entire idea was supported by nationalists of Poland and Muslims also, jihadists, as I told you, right? Okay, so socialism became the guiding principle for all of this. Now in 1905, what happened? People were already aggressive in bits and pieces, and it's not like they were staying quiet. Everyone was trying to express their best. It's just that it did not happen in consolidation, not well coordinated, as a result of which the strength, the power of the revolution, you could say, was not as much difficult for the government or the ruler or the soldiers to resist. But because 1905 was a very, very bad year, all of the people all of a sudden got united. Now, why was it a bad year? So, bacha, as famine and scarcity of food had stricken in France, it had happened all over Europe because population was increasing, but the food was not, the production was not, job was not. So, unemployment, hunger, anger, dissatisfaction, all of that was there. And as a result of which, the prices of the basic amenities, okay, basic commodities like bread, butter, whatever was required on day-to-day life was increased. Now wages remained the same. The amount of money that the peasants or the workers used to get earlier still remained the same, but the expenses were increasing. Suppose you and I earn 7,000 rupees. Okay, now what's happening is, I know that my expenses are going to increase. Right now I'm managing in 6,500. I'm also even able to save 500 rupees. But let's say all the commodities have all of a sudden spiked up the prices. Now what all stuff I used to get for just 6,000 rupees, I will be getting for 10,000 rupees now. Now I am not left with anything to spend on myself. On top of that, whatever was there was taken away. And my expenses had increased. So the same thing was happening with the workers because the wages were fixed. Their expenses were increasing, that there was no savings, and they were struggling to meet the basic needs of their life. Now this naturally made them very, very agitated, as a result of which membership of workers association rose dramatically. Everyone who till now was not a part of the association, all of the workers decided to join one association and became a huge group. Okay. Now after this, what happened? We're going to talk about the Bloody Sunday. As the name suggests, it's something related to murder, blood, and a lot of that on a Sunday. So in 1905, when the revolution started, when all these associations were formed, now one day what happened? 4 people all of a sudden were fired at the same time together simultaneously from one factory. Naturally, this made all of the other workers very agitated. They started feeling very, very insecure. Just think about it. If you see your friend is being punished for something that you have also been doing, you will constantly be under the fear that what if you get caught, what if you get punished now. So that was the fear of the rest of the workers, as a result of which 1,10,000 workers got together and they decided that they will start marching towards the Winter Palace. Winter Palace, bacha, was the place where Tsar Nicholas II, the king of Russia, used to live at that time. Okay, and all of this they were doing under the leadership of Father Gapel. Now what happened now? Can you think? what would have happened? Naturally, while they were quietly, and also guys, the nature of this protest or this, whatever expression they were doing in the bunch was very very quiet. It was not non-violent at all, but they had to face the brutality of the police and the Cossacks. Guys, Cossacks are basically the policemen who are there on horses. Now these people started attacking the people, the laborers who were now headed to the palace. Why? 1,10,000 people. Can you imagine? That was the whole chunk was mass was coming towards the king. He naturally got scared and he sent off his soldiers to fight for him, which was a very very wrong decision. As a result of this, 100 workers ended up dying and 300 were wounded. Now you can imagine how much amount of bloodshed was done as a result of this, and it was on a Sunday, and that's why this is known as Bloody Sunday. Now, why did this happen? What made the Tsar take up such an extreme step? The demands of must be people, the laborers would have been very very over demanding. They must have been demanding that was very very unfair, but that was not the case. If you see, the demands of these laborers were very simple and basic. They just said that they wanted reduction in working hours and they wanted some increment in the wage and improvement in the working conditions. The who wouldn't want that? What was their fault? That they were asking for something which is a basic need of any human being whenever they are working, right? So as a result of this, we will look at the aftermath, the effects of this Bloody Sunday. Now the moment this happened, imagine 400 people, 100 dead and 300 struggling, wounded, hurt. Everyone in the country went gaga. They were like absolutely so annoyed, so upset that they became very very aggressive. As a result of which, strike took place all over the country. All the workers just were like, okay, we are not going to work for you people now. Not just that, not just that guys, other people also started joining this strike. It was not just the laborers. Students closed down the universities. They were like, no matter what, we are going to oppose the government. Engineers, lawyers, doctors, middle class workers, everyone, they started forming unions on unions. One by one, many unions started being formed. Everyone had gone on strike and everyone was against of whatever was happening. Okay, and what was their demand? They were obviously resisting against the king. But what were they demanding? So what they were asking for was actually nothing more but a constituent assembly. Now, because the entire country was enraged, Nicholas II understood that this is not a time to take panga, to oppose the people. He would have even lost his life. So he agreed. He was like, okay, fine. You want an assembly? I will give you an assembly. And that was known as Duma over there. So he decided to give Duma to them. So election or whatever was done, okay, creation of an elected consultative parliament or Duma was formed. Now this guy very smartly, with one or the other reason, in 1905 dissolved the first Duma. Within 75 days he dissolved the first Duma. And he's a crazy man, okay. After 1905, most committee and unions declared illegal. If you remember, I told you he was declaring all the parties and everything illegal. So in 1905, he declared more of the things, committees and all, illegal, as a result of which all of those people who were there in the parliament had kind of lost their designation or their titles. So he said, okay, fine, I'm going to dissolve the government, and within 75 days, he dissolved the parliament, okay, and it was dismissed. Now he did a re-election of the Duma. Again, why was he doing this? The reason was he did not want anyone at all to question his authority or to take away his powers, as a result of which he was doing this. ठीक है बच्चा? Now after this, he realized that if he keep on doing this, people are not going to listen to him. So he decided that he will again have a third Duma created, under which he made sure to have only the conservative politicians. Now he was so smart, right? Very smartly he created the third Duma, which only had a composition of the conservative politicians who anyways were in the favor of Duma. They were not going to, in the favor of the king, in the favor of the Tsar. They were not in favor of all of these changes that's happening, and that's why they're known as conservatives. Correct, guys? Okay, so with this we are done with today's session. In the next session we will see what else happens. Something very interesting and very life-changing kind of thing happens next. Let's quickly look at the homework question. Where was Labour Party formed in 1905? France, Russia, USA or Britain? Okay, with this guys, as I told you, we come to the end of the session. If you have any doubts, any questions, make sure to put it in the comment box so that in the doubt and the menti session, I'm able to pick it up from there. Also guys, if you like the video, if you think this was helpful for you, quickly hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. We are very quickly in a day going to come up with the third session of this chapter. So you guys should get the notification first of all before anyone else, right? So make sure you're hitting the subscribe button if you have not done that already. Until then, take care, stay home, stay safe guys. I will see you in the next session. Till then, bye bye. Have a great day ahead.